Courage Con 2024. Make some noise. And that was good enough for me, but I want y'all to make some noise for Jesus one time, for the one time in this place. Make some noise for Jesus. Come on now. Come on. Oh, it's about to be a good night, y'all. It's about to be a good night. But I want to take a second. I want to honor Pastor Tyler, and I want to honor the leaders in our church, because none of this, y'all look around, none of this would be happening if it weren't for their devotion to Jesus, if it wasn't for their vision from Jesus. None of this would be happening. So I just want to take a moment to honor Pastor Tyler and say thank you for allowing me to play a part in this and getting to point the next generation to Jesus. And shout out to all y'all for showing up to Courage Con 2024. Y'all ready for the word tonight? Come on, let's get into it. Your boy, Pastor Dede, he's approaching old man status. Your boy, Pastor Dede's approaching old man status. And it's because my golden birthday is coming up here in about 2 weeks, and that means that I'm turning 26 on the 26th of this month. And I've been doing a lot of reflecting over my life. I've been doing a lot of inventory, thinking about the things that I got to experience in my life. And one of the things that I remembered was that I absolutely used to love going out to eat with my grandparents. And there was no doubt that my grandparents loved me because your boy, he used to be a big back in the day. Your boy used to be a big back. y'all be running around talking about big back. I was a big back before everybody in here was born, and it's because my grandparents, they fed your boy really well. They fed your boy well. And I remember we used to go to a bunch of different restaurants like Chili's and TGI Fridays and Cheddar's and IHOP. Y'all have a place here in the Ozarks. Y'all have a place called, you like Chili's, but y'all have a place here in the Ozarks called Lambert's. We had a place, Lambert's fans, I respect it, but we had a place back in Texas called Luby's. And at Lambert's, they throw the rolls at you so you can eat them, but at Luby's, they used to throw your silverware like, here, go eat. But I remember going to some of those places, but also remember that when we didn't have a lot of time to sit down and enjoy a good meal, I remember we used to hit up some fast food places too. We hit the usual suspects like McDonald's and Chick-fil-A and Taco Bell, all those fun places. But there's two places that I remember that I used to go to with my grandparents fairly often. One of those places is Burger King. Burger King, looking back on it, Burger King, I don't know why we went so much because the food is terrible. The food is horrible. But one thing that I do remember about Burger King is that they had their slogan plastered all over their stuff. The cups, the bags, the burger wrappers, the menus, the walls. They had their slogan plastered all over all those things because they wanted to let you know that whenever you went to Burger King at BK, you can have it your way. Y'all watch TV, y'all know how it goes. Y'all know how it goes. At Burger King, they wanted you to know that you could have it your way. And another place that I went to with my grandparents is actually a place that I still go to here, all the way here in Springfield, Missouri, because you can take the guy out of Texas, but you really can't take the Texas out the guy. And your boy, he still hits up Whataburger on the regular. And unlike Burger King, I remember Whataburger always having great food, but there was this thing about Whataburger that they wanted you to know. And they wanted you to know it so much that they actually put it on a shirt. And at Whataburger, you can get your food just like you like it. You can get your food just like you like it. You want the shirt? You want the shirt? Free shirt for my guy Jackson. But at Whataburger, they wanted you to know that you could have it just like you like it. And I got to be real with y'all tonight. I have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with Burger King and Whataburger, but I do have a problem with those slogans. Because those restaurant slogans have gone from being cool marketing phrases to get you to go get a burger however you like it. They've gone from being that to being mantras that have shaped the mindsets of an entire generation. And there's a lot that's happening in the world today that makes us think that we can do whatever we want to do. And it makes us think that we can live life however we want to live life. And in 2024, people hear the phrase, have it your way, or they hear that you can have something just like you like it. And they aren't thinking about how they can customize a burger to their liking. They're thinking about how they can customize their life to their liking. And you take one look around you, and you take a look at the culture around you, and you see people that think that they can define the core foundational truths that God has already established. You got men that think they can be women. You got women that think they can be men. Homosexuality, it's normalized now. It's in every place that you see. Biblical masculinity, it's being demonized. Biblical womanhood, it's being tossed aside. And culture wants you to think that all of those things are okay. Culture is trying to get you to move further and further away from the foundational truths that God has already established. And culture is trying to make you have mindsets that are in direct opposition to what God has already said is good. And I get it. You feel like, that's a lot, Pastor Dede. You just said a mouthful. I came to CourageCon to have some fun. What are we doing talking about all this stuff? And I get that. But I also understand that culture is trying to make you think that there's absolutely nothing wrong with what I just said. Because this is the truth. There's an enemy that's jealous of you. And his name is Satan, and he's jealous of you because he doesn't get to enjoy a relationship with Jesus the way that you guys have the opportunity to. And God is also jealous too, but he's jealous for you. That's because he created you in his image, in his likeness. He created you for himself. He created you to be in relationship with him because he knows that if you decide to live in the original intent and the original plan that he has for your life will be way better than anything that you could have ever imagined. But the enemy knows that too. And he wants to use any and everything that he can to distract, destroy, and disrupt you from being in a relationship with Jesus because he knows that this is a room full of people who have a God-given purpose, who have a God-given identity, who have God-given beliefs, who have a God-given foundation. And he knows that if you make the choice to embrace and acknowledge God's intention for your life, there's absolutely nothing that can stop you from being everything that Jesus has called you to be. And this is the truth. If you don't get anything else tonight, this is the truth. Every single person in this room is a son and a daughter of the living God. You're created in the image of the living God. You're equipped and empowered by the presence of the living God. And when you make the choice to acknowledge and embrace God's original design for you and your life, you will be better for it because you will be submitted to the lordship and the sovereignty of the living God. God's original design for your life is good, and he wants you to live in it. And that's always been his plan for you. That's always been his plan for all of us. It's always been his plan for us to enjoy a relationship with him. It's always been his plan for us to walk in the fruit and the blessing that comes from knowing him. And it's all across the Bible. In Philippians chapter 2, verse 13, Paul says that for God is working in you, giving you the desire and the power to do what pleases him. Ephesians 2:10 says, for we are God's masterpiece. He has created us anew in Christ Jesus so we can do the good things that he planned for us long ago. Micah 6:8 says, he has already told you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. It's always been his plan for us to live according to his design, not ours. It's always been his plan for us to live according to his way, his desires, his purposes. But ever since we messed up and ate the fruit in the garden, we've gotten it twisted all along the way, and we've gotten it messed up all along the way, and we think that we can live life however we want to live. Culture has gotten us to think that we can live life based on good vibes and all the things that aren't focused and centered on Jesus Christ. Because of that, we've been engaged in a fight. We've been engaged in a spiritual battle between what God has already said is good and what we feel like is good. And there's this guy in the Bible, his name's Paul. He has firsthand experience with living in that fight. He has firsthand experience living in that tension between following what God has said is good and following what he felt like was good. Because y'all, before Paul was out here killing Christians and throwing Jesus followers in jail. And that doesn't sound like God's original intent for anybody's life, let alone Paul. But Paul was out here wilding. But thank God, because one day, Jesus got a hold of Paul's heart, and Jesus showed Paul the original intent and the original design that he had for Paul's life, and Paul got on mission, and he got on purpose to living a Jesus-first lifestyle, and Paul was so devoted and so dedicated to it that Paul, after all of that, was able to say this in Romans chapter 1, verse 16. Paul was able to say, "For I am not ashamed of this good news about Christ. It's the power of God at work, saving everyone who believes, the Jew first and also the Gentile." And y'all, this generation is looking for people that have that same mindset. This world is looking for people that have that same mindset. Your schools, your homes, this church, this city, this community, we're all looking for people that have that mindset, that say, "I'm not ashamed of Jesus Christ." Looking for people that aren't ashamed to say, "I will follow Jesus no matter what." That say, "I'm not afraid to live every day of my life putting Jesus first." That say, "I'm not ashamed to stand out from the crowd and to stand up in a culture that wants me to be silent about the things that actually matter." Jesus is looking for people like you in this generation to put him first in every single aspect of their lives, because his original intent for your life is good, and he wants you to live in the fullness of that goodness. And he wants you to live in the fullness of that goodness. He wants you to live in the original intent and the original design that he has for your life, because when you step outside of his intentions and his design and his plan for your life, you no longer allow God to be God. And Paul, when he figured this out, he was writing this letter to the Romans, and he figured out that I got to tell these people what's up, because if they don't let God be God in their lives, they're going to wreck their whole lives. And the thing about the people that Paul was writing to, they were entrenched in a culture that didn't want anything to do with God. They didn't want to follow God. They didn't want to follow God's ways. They didn't want to follow his plans, his purposes, his intent. They didn't want anything to do with God. They wanted to be their own God. Because of that, stuff started getting crazy. And in Romans chapter 1, verse 24, Paul tells us this: "So God abandoned them." And those are some of the worst words that you could ever see in Scripture. So God abandoned them. And it's not because God isn't merciful. It's not because he's not gracious. It's not because he's not good. It's not because he didn't care. God let them do what they wanted to do because they simply refused to acknowledge his lordship and his sovereignty over their lives. These people didn't let God be God. So God said, "All right, I love you too much to try and strong-arm you into doing anything." So God abandoned them to do whatever shameful things their hearts desired. And as a result, they did vile and degrading things with each other's bodies. Verse 25 says, "They traded the truth about God for a lie. So they worshiped and served the things God created instead of the Creator himself, who is worthy of eternal praise." And that's what happens whenever you get out of alignment with God's original intent for your life. You start worshiping created stuff instead of worshiping the Creator. You start worshiping people instead of worshiping the only person who's deserving of our worship. You start worshiping ideologies and ideals that have absolutely nothing to do with what Jesus intended for your life. And that's what happens when we get out of whack and when we get out of alignment with God's original intent and design for our lives. And what I'm about to read shows us just how bad it gets whenever we choose not to follow God's design for our lives. Verse 26 says, that is why God abandoned them to their shameful desires. Even the women turned against the natural way to have sex and instead indulged with sex with each other. And the men, instead of having normal sexual relations with women, they burned with lust for each other. Men did shameful things with other men. And as a result of this sin, they suffered within themselves the penalty that they deserved. Verse 28, this is it right here. It says, since they thought it foolish to acknowledge God, he abandoned them to their foolish thinking and let them do things that should never be done. Strangely enough, all of that actually reminds me of another place that I used to eat at with my grandparents. And it seemed like every Friday after school, before I got really big into football, it seemed like every Friday after school, we used to hit up this place called Pizza Hut. We got a Pizza Hut lover. We love Pizza Hut, and we used to hit up Pizza Hut most Fridays after school, and after school, we would go home with 2 large meat lovers pizzas, and y'all, they used to slap. Come on, somebody. Come on, somebody. Pizza Hut was fire. Pizza Hut was good. But I also remember this thing about Pizza Hut. They had a slogan, too. They had a slogan that they had plastered all over their boxes. Come on. No one out-pizzas the Hut. He knows where I'm going. He knows what's happening. No one out-pizzas the Hut. But they had that plastered all over the boxes. They had that plastered all over the walls. They had that plastered everywhere that you could look, because anytime you went to Pizza Hut, they wanted you to know that what? No one out-pizzas the Hut. Come on. Come on, somebody. But they did that. They did that because they wanted everybody to know that Domino's could try, Little Caesars, Emos, CC's, Slapbox, Big Slice. They wanted everybody to know that all those places could try to do pizza, but nobody is doing pizza better than us because nobody out-pizzas the Hut. And they wanted everybody to know that so much that they decided to intentionally design and intentionally create their buildings with an iconic, unique roof so that when you took one look at a Pizza Hut, there would be no mistaking and there would be no doubt that this place was designed to be a Pizza Hut. It looks something like this. You can put that first picture up on the screen. This is what Pizza Hut is supposed to look like. And you can look at the iconic roof. It has the hut-shaped roof and all those things. And once I figured that out, they have great deep dish. But once I figured that out, I went full dad mode. And I hopped in my car and I started driving around the good old 417, going on a little Pizza Hut scavenger hunt. And I found myself over on the north side, not too far from the North Campus. And I pulled up to this place called Kearney Street Cafe. Put it up on the screen. Kearney Street Cafe. Wonderful selfie. Fresh cut. Your boy's looking good. Now, the sign says that's a Kearney Street Cafe. But I'll take one look at that roof, and I know that this place wasn't originally designed for this to be a place where I could go get some breakfast, some eggs, some toast, bacon. That's a place that was originally designed to serve pizza because nobody out-pizzas the Hut. And then I hopped back in my car, and I found myself over by Bass Pro, because everybody loves Bass Pro. And I found myself at a little coffee shop. Everybody knows this coffee shop. Everybody loves this coffee shop. You go and you get your pumpkin spice lattes, get your pumpkin cream cheese muffins. Y'all know Starbucks. Y'all know Starbucks. Another selfie. Your boy pulled up to Starbucks. And I was like, coffee sounds good, but I took a look at this roof, and I was like, I know they're dishing up coffee here, but I can't help but look at that roof and realize that that's supposed to be a Pizza Hut. That was originally designed to be a Pizza Hut, and you can take one look at that roof and know that that's a Pizza Hut because nobody out-pizzas the Hut. So then I hopped back in my car, and I found myself over by my old stomping grounds, and I was over by Evangel, close to Evangel, and I saw this empty lot, and I saw this empty building. You can put the picture up on the screen. There's absolutely nothing here. Nothing is there, and I think I remember when I was at Evangel, this was a used car lot or something, but there's absolutely nothing here. But you can take one look at that roof, you can take one look at the building, And you can clearly tell that that place was originally and intentionally designed to be a Pizza Hut because nobody out-pizzas the hut. And there's countless, y'all listen, there's countless other places all over the country that have the same type of story. There's yogurt shops, there's churches, there's hospitals, there's vet clinics, there's a whole bunch of buildings that have the same story. And they've all tried to put on new identities. They tried to sell new products. They tried to paint and do everything that they could to change the exterior and to make it look unique to what they wanted it to be. But y'all, you can take one look at all of those places and tell that it was originally designed to be a Pizza Hut because they wanted you to know that no matter what happens to this building, no matter what it looks like, they wanted you to know that no one out-pizzas the hut. And when it comes to your life, you have the same choice to make because you can choose to live however you want to live. You can choose to not follow God's original intent and his original design for your life. You can choose to do all the crazy stuff, but I tell you what, it's not going to be a problem for God. It's going to be a problem for you because God is always going to be God. He's going to be the same yesterday, today, and forever, which means he's always going to be King of Kings and Lord of Lords, which means he's always going to sit on the throne, ruling in sovereignty and majesty and the only one deserving of worship. So it's not going to be a problem for him. It's going to be a problem for you because just like no one out-pizzas the hut, no one out-Gods God. That means God is the only one who gets to define what is good about gender, about your identity, about sexuality, about your heart, your motives, your mind. God is the only one who gets to define what is good about marriage and family and what your life is supposed to look like. God is the one who gets to define what all that stuff looks like. It was never up for us to debate. It was never up for us to choose. It's always been God's design for us to yield to his lordship and to yield to his sovereignty and to acknowledge him as God because he wants us to live in the blessing that comes from following him. But that only comes when we let him be God because no one out-Gods God. Now, I don't have a lot of time. I need to keep moving, but I don't have a lot of time because there's verses in Corinthians that we're going to hear about just in a little bit, but it shows evidence of what a life that isn't surrendered to the Lord looks like. Things like sexual immorality and homosexuality, prostitution. There's a whole list of things that show what a life that is not yielded to God looks like. And the big thing in those verses says that the people that habitually indulge in those things, they will not inherit the kingdom of God. And all this stuff happens in our lives when we don't submit to God. But there's always good news when it comes to God. There's always good news when it comes to Jesus because Jesus made a way for all of us to acknowledge him as Lord. He made a way for all of us to enter into a relationship so that we can live in the blessing that comes from him. 1 Corinthians 6:11 says, some of you were once like that, all the stuff that I just talked about. But you were cleansed. You were made holy. You were made right with God by calling on the name of the Lord Jesus Christ and by the Spirit of our God. And when you make the choice to call on Jesus, when you make the choice to choose to live life his way and not your way, when you make the choice to choose to follow his original intent and his original design for your life, I promise you, your life will get better. I promise you, your life will look like nothing that you ever thought was possible. But you got to let God be God, which means you got to let God cook. So everybody say, let him cook. That means you got to let God cook when it doesn't make sense, when you're the only one out here, when you're the only one that's following Jesus, when you're the only one that's out on a limb. You got to let God cook. And you got to make the choice to live by God's original intent and his design for your life. So we're about to do that tonight. And I have a few friends who are here with me, and